Hi, my name is Sarthak Ahuja.
Hello. Audible? So the AV that they just played, I really don't know why they played. Every time I go up on stage, it's my team which kind of puts it together and makes me seem like a WWE superstar of sorts. But purely going by my hairstyle, I think I do look like Stone Cold Steve Austin, so not complaining. What I'm here for today at this event is, I'm not a wedding planner, I'm not an events guy, I don't do wedding photography, I've got nothing related to the wedding industry. Apart from the fact that what is that one common thread why all of us are here today or go to business every single day is to make money. And I help businesses make money. So purely as a small introduction, I help startups with raising funds and even small businesses raise capital. So for example, when does the question of valuation of your business normally comes up? I've mostly seen that, even if you're a small business, you're not a tech startup who's raising external capital, you need to understand what is the value of your business today. Why? Because tomorrow there could be an opportunity that someone wants to acquire you, or you want to merge with someone, or you want to get an external partner, make them a co-founder in business, because you feel they've got certain connections that you can leverage on and make money. But how much of your business stake would you be giving out to them? And I remember there's this one edtech platform which reached out to me late last year, saying that we want you to make us a course on ESOPs. And I said, okay, we can do ESOPs and I can teach people about how to value their company, to give equity to their own employees. But what's your target audience? What kind of people are we going to be teaching this to? And he said, this is people in tier 2, tier 3 India. So imagine something like a Gwalior or in Indore. And I was like, why would people sitting in tier 2, tier 3 cities in India want to even know about ESOPs? They don't want to give any equity to their employees. And they said, sir, you're so badly mistaken. Because everywhere, retaining employees or manpower is so difficult. And we've all seen this across industries, that people are always looking out to move to a place where they can get more money. We feel that even if we were to create a pool and give away some equity to some key people so that they have skin in the game and they feel that they're going to get a share of profits in the future. And that's why we need to value our companies and structure this entirely, right? So first we look at how is it that startups are valued, what is the science behind it, what are the thumb rules behind it, and even if we're not tech startups per se, how can we value our businesses for deal advisory, mergers, acquisition, and the like. Okay, so these are 3 top wedding tech platforms all of you would have heard of. There's WedMeGood, Weddings, and Shadi Saga. If you look at the valuation of the first 2, that's 70 crore. At that point, when they were acquired or valued last, because an external investor was putting in money, that was roughly about $10 million of valuation. Now, if you were to look at the funding that both of them took, is again roughly the same. So there has to be some science behind it, right? There has to be. And third, if you look at the revenue, there's a stark difference. Now, of course, the reason for difference in revenue is, WedMeGood continues to work as it was functioning, the time that it was functioning, when it was valued at these numbers. However, Weddings has been acquired by Oyo. So at this point, we don't really know how Oyo is using the Weddings IP or the rights to kind of value its business, but we'll come to that logic as well. But the first commonality you see here is 70 crore valuation at roughly 21-22 crore funding. So let me tell you how startups think of valuation. Essentially what they're selling to people is the idea that we're building something scalable which will be immensely profitable in the future and capture the entire market. Okay? Now, the reason why understanding that incentive or that vision is important is because geographically, if you were to look at how companies in Japan function, their focus is Japanese companies will also sell at a loss because their main business objective is we cannot lose an existing customer. So to retain an existing customer, they will even do business at a loss because their business objective is not profit, it's all the goodwill they've created over the years that they cannot have a customer leave them and go elsewhere. Now, what that has led to over the years, along with the fact that Japan has such an aging population, that Japanese companies around the world are losing their valuation because their focus is not profit as much as just ensuring that their clout loves them. If you were to look at business objectives in Germany again, more than profits, companies culturally are focused on that an employee should not leave them. So they will increase employee packages, they will spend on that, but that's their business objective. If you were to go to the US is not as much focused on the profit that the business will make, but the business objective is market share. If a market is 1000 crore in rupees or dollars, how much percentage of share do I have? Now, if you were to look at how startups function or the origin story of startups, they all started in Silicon Valley, where tech startups were being built because they realized in the future everything is going to happen online. And if we build a monopoly business online, we will have larger market shares, and we're ready to do that even if it takes us to be in deep losses for the first 5 to 7 years, because thereafter we will make such supernormal profits that we'll have absolutely no competition in the entire world. Which is why, if you think of how startups are valued, it's all a narrative. And you are solely focused on putting value to market share. So if the total market is 1000 crores and you aim to get to 50% of that market share within the next 5 years, that means all of a sudden you're getting valued at 500 crore. Now, of course, that's putting it very simplistically. But when you start a business, or a few of you people would also be working on building something for wedding tech, say, doing weddings digitally, or putting together a software platform or something which makes people's experience of attending a wedding online much more engaging. If you're planning on working on any of these things, it's important for you to understand how to put a value to that business. Okay, so let's look at the thumb rule. Typically, a startup's life cycle when it starts raising money, world over, the average is that in 11 years a company gets to IPO. Any company which has gone to IPO, the average age is 10 to 12 years, so about 11 years. Now, how startups think is the best case scenario is to get to IPO. Now, if I need to get to IPO, and now the time to IPO is getting shorter, it's roughly at about 8 years. If I need to get there in 8 years, the founders are thinking that even at that time, if I hold 10% of the company, it's going to be massive wealth, something unimaginable. So if I want to hold 10% at that time, and maybe I might have to give away 10% to my founding team in the form of ESOPs, that 20% of my business valuation set aside, which means I have 80% of my equity which I can give up to investors over an 8-year period, till the point I hit to IPO, correct? Now, typically, when a startup raises funds, their best case scenario is to raise enough so that they have enough money in the bank to last them with their entire losses for the next 18 to 24 months. So, best case scenario, you are raising to fund your losses for the next 2 years. That means 4 rounds of funding till the point you complete 8 years, correct? So, 2 years with 1 fundraise, 4 rounds of fundraises, you complete 8 years, and best case scenario, you get to IPO. Now, if you need to dilute 80% in 8 years, that means on an average, you would want 1 funding round, you dilute not over 20%. If that's the average you want to maintain, typically in the first round of funding, if you've ended up diluting 25% of your company, that means in the next round of funding, you need to dilute no more than 15% so that you come to 20%. This is a very basic thumb rule. Now, of course, there are several factors around it. But to put it simply, you can also call it the rule of 5x. So whatever is the money you want to raise, which you will burn, absolutely burn in losses to build your tech product, and you will burn that over 2 things. One is on marketing for customer acquisition to build a brand, and the second is on the topmost team that you can hire, the most expensive team that you can hire, because these are the people who will help you build the next Facebook or Google or whatever. Okay? So the 5x rule is whatever is the money you need to burn, 5 times of that is your valuation. Simple. Okay? But for typical traditional businesses, that makes absolutely no sense. And that's not how you would be valued. So we'll also be looking at what is the best way to value your businesses if you're not a tech startup. So that explains, so if they've raised about 20 and got to a 70 valuation, it's not exactly 5x, but they typically, say diluted about 33% or so of their company to get to this stage in the early phases of their business. Now, the next thing that you look at, where say you're comparing yourself to another business which is similar to yours, say a competitor, which has just been valued because they've merged with a bigger entity or they've acquired someone, you look at certain multiples which become a comparable, right? So one common multiple used at least in tech startups is the revenue multiple. So if you were to look at the revenue multiple, that for when we could here, is roughly about 6x. 6 times the annual revenue is their valuation. However, the revenue multiple is much higher for weddings which was acquired by Oyo. There could be several reasons for it, and we look at how you can really hike up your valuation and justify it. But more on that in the next slide. So we've explained what is the revenue multiple, how much of the promoter's shares were sold. I've explained through the logic of 5x. Now, these are the top investors who are actually investing right now or have invested in the past 2-3 years in the wedding tech category. So if you're building a platform, it makes sense to study their portfolio. They've invested in the past couple of years and probably approach them because they're interested in this category. Also, fun fact, recently Kunal Shah, the founder of Cred, was on an interview where he specifically mentioned that I'm pained by the number of people not creating tech businesses in the wedding segment, because literally India culturally, and all of us have seen it, just save to spend on their weddings. So if you could find a tech way to capture that market, the amount of value that you can build in your business and the wealth you can generate is massive. So please, let's not forget that. Now, fundamentals of business valuation, I am going to be posing you guys a question. So I might just walk down the stage and ask anyone, because this is not core finance, this is business common sense. So, sir, if you could tell me please, if you had to acquire another person's business, how would you put a value in it? What are you going to look at? Common sense. I'll give you a figure. So they do 1 crore of revenue per year and their profits are 20 lakh. How much would you give to acquire their business? 5 crores. Okay, so how did you come up with that figure? Okay, considering they will grow multiple times. So let me give you fundamentals of business valuation. This is basics of finance or common sense. When you're valuing a business, you're going to look at, if I am paying some money, how much will I get in return? I want to pay lesser than what I will make from it. Forget tech businesses. If you were to just acquire a small business, an agency business, an event management business, your focus has to be that I should in no case pay more than what I will earn in the next 4 years by just acquiring this business. So your payback period is 4 years. So if, for example, that business makes a profit of 20 lakhs per annum, and you know that they're probably going to do the same amount of sales in the next 4 years, you should ideally not be paying more than 80 lakhs to acquire their business, because if you pay anything more, you've just lost money. Because when you're acquiring a business, you're thinking that I am acquiring it for at least to run it for the next 8 years. That means you recover your cost in the first 4 years, and only after that do you really make money. Correct? Now, this valuation will actually go up if I were to change a simple factor, which is growth rate. Now, how does that impact the business? In my first case, I had assumed that their profits are going to be the same for the next 4 years. However, if that business is growing really rapidly, and I think They're probably going to do double the profits next year, triple the following year. Suddenly their valuation increases because in the next 4 years, they're going to be making much more money and your payback period is going to reduce, right? So there are two things which are of extreme importance in valuing your business. One is the positive cash flows you generate every single year. So what was the positive cash flow you generated last year? And the second thing is growth rate. How fast are you really growing? You need to justify it on paper. The reason tech startups have a very high valuation despite no positive cash flows is because they have exponential growth rates. So either you take the route of growing at least 200, 300, 1000% every single year. If that's not happening, you're just going to be valued as a traditional business, right? So that's the basic logic to remember. Types of investors. Also important which impacts your valuation is because one, there is and mostly when you speak with investment bankers or CAs, they'll tell you there are two types of investors. However, there are three. The first is a financial investor who's going to calculate, okay, I'm paying 1 crore, in how much time will I recover that money, and then go on to make more money off of this deal. He's purely looking at it as a business owner, as a financer. The second kind of investor is a strategic investor. What we saw in the case of Oyo realized that we wanted to expand and probably use some existing database to enter a new market and sell properties as wedding venues to others. That is a strategic investor who's got a lot of money but wants to enter a new market, and you've already done the groundwork of preparing that market for them. So that they're ready to pay you extra money to enter that market. That's a strategic investor. The third kind of investor is an emotional investor and is the best kind to get, because they're neither thinking about it from the perspective of how much money they're going to make from it. They're not thinking about it from the perspective of whether it'll help them get into a market, but what they're thinking is that this, if I were to acquire, will make me look really cool and relevant, and it'll give me PR, and I'll increase my branding. And a lot of media businesses are, not kidding, businesses which just give people brag-worthy rights. So, restaurant businesses make huge losses, but people still do that because they want to be in the food industry. They want to serve people good food. They want to be known for it, which is why a lot of times restaurants don't make money, but those are brag-worthy businesses to be in. If you can find an emotional investor, which is probably a celebrity who wants to be relevant again, you can actually charge the best kind of price. Now, what else is left here? Correct. So how much did Indian startups raise in 2021? That's $40 billion. $1 million is 8,000 crore rupees. Just in the last year, Indian startups raised that much from investors. And where was most of this money spent? It was actually spent on customer acquisition. So what you're doing here today is customer acquisition. If it's just going to be listening to talks, of course, definitely listen to me. But after that, it's important that you network and collect that customer, convert it and close it. How do you close it? This is something that all startups do. So as a matter of rule, remember the time for only profitable businesses has gone. There are two things that business need to focus on. Earlier, it used to be profits, that you're making profits. Now it's profitability and scalability. So if you don't have scalability in your business, sorry, the half-life of your business is reducing every single month. And you may be absolutely irrelevant in the next 5 years. And as a matter of rule, in today's time, there are just two things that scale. One is tech, that you build something online. The second is content that scales. Which is why for customer acquisition, it's important for you to remember that 20 years ago, every business wanted a website. Show of hands on how many of you have a website for your business? Yeah? 20 years ago, every business wanted a website. 10 years ago, every business wanted an app. And some of us did make apps. Today, every business wants content. So if you're not building content marketing as part of your business, there is no way you will be able to scale and reach 1 million people in the next 2-3 years and increase the funnel of your leads. So for example, if you feel you're just doing 50 lakh or 1 crore weddings, sorry, that's not enough scale. You need to be reaching out, people need to know about you, at least 1 million people should know about you, so that every year, at least 5 out of those 1 million come to you with 5 crore wedding budgets and you can make your money. So if your funnel is not that strong and you're just going to 3 or 4 wedding conferences in a year, that's not going to give you a reach of 1 million people. And I think that's the mindset all of us need to change. Given that was just my time, I'm Sarthak Ahuja. I help startups raise funds. I help businesses value them through deal advisory, find them others who can acquire them. And if you're planning on ESOPs or buying someone out, that's the kind of guy. I also make a lot of content on finance and business growth hacks on Instagram, which is where most of you people know me from. Thank you. That was my time.